that we have in the future.
And right now, day 2 of that Brexit Article 50 debate with a vote later on tonight. Trouble there for Mrs May as well?
Well, no, I think, in a word, no. I think the government is pretty happy in the knowledge that the Brexit bill will pass its first hurdle in the House of Commons. Don't get me wrong, this is a very important vote. It's the first time that MPs have debated and will vote on the legislation that will essentially kickstart our process to leave the EU. But Theresa May has bought off her Conservative rebels. I think later the thing to watch is how many Labour rebels there are. Jeremy Corbyn has issued a 3-line whip for them to vote with the bill. I think it'll be interesting to see how many either abstain or vote against it.
Right. Emily, thank you. Well, as his immigration ban fuels debate in Westminster, across the Atlantic, it's President Trump's Supreme Court nomination that's causing controversy today. Overnight, he took to prime-time television to nominate Judge Neil Gorsuch to the vacant seat on the 9-strong panel of judges. Now, if accepted by Congress, he'll be part of a court which has a final say on divisive issues such as gun control and abortion. But his Conservative stance has led to the Democrats already saying that they will try to block his appointment. Geraint Vincent with the latest.
If American Conservatives were looking for a hero justice, then they may well have found one in this 49-year-old from out west. Neil Gorsuch is the new Supreme Court nominee with an old-school approach to interpreting America's Constitution, and he is just what the new president is looking for.
The qualifications of Judge Gorsuch are beyond dispute. He is the man of our country and a man who our country really needs, and needs badly, to ensure the rule of law.
The Supreme Court is so important because in American democracy it very often has the final say. On polarizing issues like abortion and gay rights, it decides what is and isn't against the law. There are 9 Supreme Court justices, and when one of them passed away last year, the Conservative majority on the bench was lost. Judge Gorsuch's appointment would restore it.
Stop! Gorsuch! Stop! Gorsuch!
Hundreds of thousands of people have been demonstrating. And what is Donald Trump's answer to this? It is to nominate an extremist to the United States Supreme Court who is against the very rights that millions of people are marching to defend.
His right-wing positions on issues like religious rights will ensure a fierce debate between Democrats and Republicans throughout Gorsuch's nomination process. But at the start of it, he was keen to sound a note of humility.
When we judges don our robes, it doesn't make us any smarter, but it does serve as a reminder of what's expected of us. Impartiality and independence, collegiality and courage.
Despite the judge's attempts to sound conciliatory, the president's choice here is going to exacerbate the divisions which are becoming the hallmark of the Trump presidency. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
Here, rail fares are to be overhauled in a trial to end the misery of rip-off ticket prices. It aims to make rail travel cheaper and ticketing easier to understand. Last autumn, MPs declared prices have been unfair and too complicated for at least a decade. Passengers have been left to try and cut the cost themselves by splitting single journeys into separate legs, as Olivia Kinsley reports.
The paper proof of a system that's become bizarre. This passenger bought 56 separate tickets for a single journey from Newcastle to Oxford and saved £56. Another slashed their fare by £70 from Norwich to Birmingham. They just needed 18 tickets to get there.
It's the same journey, but it just breaks it down into smaller chunks, which ends up resulting in being cheaper, which is a bit crazy.
It's just a bit of a rip-off, really. I mean, particularly when you go on a machine, because you can't get the same tickets you can get from the guy, but the guy's not always there, so you have to pay more.
Today, commuters woke up to a promise that the rail industry will simplify fares by removing some long connecting journeys when there are cheaper alternatives and making ticket machines less confusing to use. It is the biggest overhaul of ticketing in decades and will see passengers being offered the cheapest tickets, regardless of whether that's buying 2 singles or a return. It will also mean that they don't have to check themselves if splitting a fare on different operators or on different routes might be cheaper.
this really is something where we in the train industry are as keen for people to trust the system and know they're getting the right ticket as people are themselves. There's really no benefit to us from the out-of-date and baffling fare system that is now really in need of a complete overhaul.
The new system will be trialled from May on some selected routes, including cross-country East Midlands and the East and West Coast services. It should mean fewer tickets for a deal. Olivia Kinsley, ITV News.
And joining me live in the studio is Peter Morey, who is head of campaigns with Which. Is this a breakthrough or, frankly, just a good start?
It's just a good start. This is just the first step. People have struggled to find the cheapest ticket when they're trying to go on a train journey for far too long. We've been identifying it. The government and MPs have as well. So this is just the first step. We need to hold the train companies to account and make sure that they deliver on it. And we need to go much further. We're just trialling on this on a couple of lines so far, and we need to see this right across the country.
And as you know, a couple of lines, Cross Country and Virgin are on board. But this is also specifically about longer journeys, Scotland down to London and what have you, as opposed to the vast majority commuters.
That's right, and people find it really hard to find the best ticket when they turn up at stations right across the country. I think people out there will be asking, why has this taken so long? Why, when the MPs have said that people have had problems for a decade, are we only having this today? And why is this just a trial? We want to see this right across the country. We want it to be much easier for people to get the cheapest ticket when they travel by train.
I mean, people listening to this conversation will be very familiar with websites that are advertised on television that say, you know, hotel rooms, for example, compare all of the prices available instantly. In essence, are you saying the rail company should do that for you when you want to go from London to Newcastle or the other way?
Well, we've been working with the government, we've been working with the rail industry to bring forward an action plan to deliver a whole load of changes in the ticketing area. And you're right, you should see those kind of changes where you can much easier find the best deal for you on a website.
We know from that that the software clearly exists.
Exactly. But I think that the train industry, again, are dragging their feet in terms of making all of that information that they have available to those websites. Yeah. They've committed to an action plan. They've committed to these trials and tests. They now need to deliver on it, because we've had a winter of discontent on the rails. People, you know, struggling with delays and with cancellations and poor service. So this is just the first step, and people expect more from their rail services.
Right. We shall watch with great interest. Pete, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Pete Morey there from Which. Now, if you want to get to know the cheapest tickets for your train journey, you can go online to itv.com/news for 11 tips to help you save money. Still to come, the silent heart condition that doctors warn could be more common than we think. And tributes to Graham Taylor at his funeral in Watford. But first, powerful testimony today from a relative who lost 3 generations of his family in the terrorist massacre in Tunisia. Owen Richards, who was just 16, saw his brother, uncle and grandfather shot dead by an Islamist extremist on a beach in Sousse. Neil Connery has been at the inquest at the Royal Court of Justice for us, which has been hearing exactly what happened on that day. So, Neil, what did you hear?
Some very powerful evidence about the 3 generations of this one family who were killed at Sousse. They were Joel Richards, 22, his uncle Adrian Evans, 49, and his grandfather Patrick Evans, who was 78. They'd gone on holiday to celebrate Joel's younger brother Owen finishing his GCSEs. I think Owen here is on the far left of the picture of the group. Now, he survived the attack and was here this morning as his statement was read out. He said as the gunman approached, he spoke of how he and Joel helped their grandfather to run as the firing started. He said, "Grandad kept falling over, but we made it to the indoor pool. I was hugging Grandad on the floor," he said. "I could see Joel standing, and then he screamed at the gunman. I think he shouted 3 times to stop. I closed my eyes and heard a burst of firing," he said. "Grandad was injured and said, 'He's got me.' My ear went deaf. I opened my eyes," he said, describing the moment he knew his brother, uncle and grandfather were all dead. The coroner said Owen had shown extraordinary courage in trying to protect his grandfather. Owen and Joel's mother, Suzanne, paid tribute to the family members who were lost at Sousse. She said, "We are broken. Every day is a colossal struggle." These inquests continue.
Neil, thank you. In what prosecutors said was one of the worst cases of its kind, the paedophiles pleaded guilty to 45 sex offences against children. 70-year-old former schoolteacher Mark Frost admitted carrying out abuse both here and in Thailand. The National Crime Agency believe he may have assaulted many other children during his 25-year teaching career. MPs say health tourism is draining the NHS of hundreds of millions of pounds a year because of chaotic billing. In a damning report, they say they are not confident the Department of Health is taking effective action to recover money from overseas patients who leave with unpaid treatment bills. And the decision on whether Philip Green is stripped of his knighthood could be delayed for several years. The Forfeiture Committee chairman says it is important they consider the outcome of investigations by pensions and bankruptcy regulators into the collapse of BHS before reaching their decision. Experts are warning that hundreds of thousands of people in the UK carry a faulty gene and may not know that it puts them at a much higher risk of having a sudden heart attack. The British Heart Foundation says 620,000 people carry the gene. That's 100,000 more than they had previously estimated. It believes most people are unaware they even had it. There's a 50% chance of children inheriting the gene from a parent who has it. And that's exactly the situation that mother of two, Inderdeep Burke, found her family in when she discovered that she'd passed the faulty gene on to her two sons. Inderdeep was unaware that she even carried the gene until one of them collapsed on his 16th birthday.
It's very difficult, you know. Sometimes I just look at him and I feel bad. I just, you know, sometimes I say, oh my God, I'm the reason, you know, I'm the carrier. But then again, it's strange, you know, for him to suffer at such a young age. And mine was not diagnosed till they found it, that I was the carrier. And then after a year, I started getting the symptoms.
It's quite challenging in the sense there's a lot of things now that I can't do that normal kids my age can do. I haven't really been to school for not even a full year since year 7 because of this condition. I've either been having, like Mum had said, the dizziness symptoms, or like chest pain, or just general like fatigue.
Well, senior cardiac nurse at the British Heart Foundation, Christopher Allen, joins me live this lunchtime. Christopher, good of you to come in. I mean, first and foremost, that's a big jump in the numbers. I mean, 600,000 worrying enough, 100,000 higher than you previously thought. Why?
What we've had to do through research is recategorise some of the conditions we already know about. So through research, we found that a lot of people with one of the conditions actually have more of a genetic element to that condition than we previously thought, hence the jump.
And therefore providing the key connection that you needed to know. So if it is the case, you then know what to do.
Absolutely. Sure. The only way we know how to treat these people is if we know about them and then we get them into a specialist service. We give them medications, we screen their family members. It's a whole family thing. It's not just one person, but it always does start with that one person.
Because as we just saw in the film, I mean, if you've got it, then some of the symptoms are obvious. I mean, the chest literally beating and palpitations and what have you. But is that the only connection that might predict, as in that case, that your children may then inherit it?
Often people will have symptoms, but what we have to look at as well is family history. So if in your family history you have premature deaths that are unexplained, doesn't matter how long ago it was, or you have premature heart disease, people having heart attacks in their 40s and 50s, that's not normal. That shouldn't be happening in absence of other risk factors. So by really digging down into family history, you can get a lot of information, and then we kind of go from there. If someone has symptoms, it's easier to pin it down. If they don't, we can do screening to see what the condition of their heart is, and then if appropriate, genetic testing to look for the faulty gene that may lead on to the condition.
We all know, because we report upon it very regularly, the pressure that GPs are under, but that's the first stop if you think you're in the frame.
Absolutely. GPs are your first point of call for any symptoms that you're having. It may be quite innocent palpitations, they may be palpitations linked to inherited heart condition. The scale is enormous, but the only way to know where you sit on that scale is to get a diagnosis in the first place.
Yeah. Don't panic, but do some homework.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, Christopher Allen, thank you very much indeed for coming in. The funeral of the former England manager Graham Taylor is taking place in Watford this lunchtime. He took the Towns Football Club from the bottom division of professional football right to the very top in the 1980s. He died earlier this month at the age of 72. Nick Wallace reports.
Saying goodbye to one of the most well-loved figures in the game. Fans, players and former colleagues paying their last respects to the manager who put Watford on the footballing map.
First of all, he's a good man, solid man, family man, and a good manager.
Among the mourners, several old pros who Taylor brought with him on Watford's extraordinary journey.
Graham was the best of all of us, wasn't he? Because he created and got all of this for us, and that helped me to get my career the way I did, and also shape your life. So Graham, very special person.
Graham Taylor's career as a football manager began in Lincoln, but took off when he met Elton John, chairman of Watford Football Club. When he was appointed, Watford were in the 4th division. Within 5 years, Taylor had taken the club to the top flight of English football. The following season, they finished 2nd in the league. The season after that, an FA Cup final. Taylor's success at Watford and then Aston Villa led to a disastrous spell as England manager. But in later life, his decency and skill as a pundit rehabilitated him in the public's eyes. This lunchtime, Graham Taylor is making his final journey, with his family well aware of just how much he meant to Watford and football. Nick Wallace, ITV News.
And finally, dramatic footage has emerged of a lava fire hose flowing from an active volcano in Hawaii. The rare phenomenon of a single, large stream of hot molten lavas pouring from Hawaii's Kilauea volcano into the Pacific Ocean. Researchers have recorded temperatures as high as 428 degrees Fahrenheit. In the crack that it's passing through, the lava's interaction with the cold seawater results in dangerous explosions, at times launching debris high into the air. Extraordinary. That's it this lunchtime. Mary Nightingale will be here with the ITV Evening News at 6:30. The news where you are follows the national weather. But for now, from all of us, a very good afternoon to you. Bye-bye.